Hey, you're here! Welcome to this video. Today I'm going to show you how I did the Master Sword from Legend of Zelda. So let's get started. These are the materials that I gathered. I will mainly be using this paper mache blade that I created a while ago. Unfortunately, the bottom here is pretty flimsy, so I'll be fixing that in this video. The next thing that I will be using is this piece of wood that I found. It belonged to a chair that we no longer own, so I'll be using it to make the grip of the sword. Now, the styrofoam I'll be using to create the guard of the sword. So let's start by drawing the design of the guard on a styrofoam. I'm just obviously eyeballing it, so just drawing it out, whatever I see on my laptop. Even though I'm eyeballing it, I'm going to try to make the two pieces of the guard as symmetrical as I can. And this is how the guard looks like drawn out. So let's put that aside for now, and let me show you what I did with the piece of wood. What I did was grab a black marker and started to mark out the places I'm going to saw off later. The pieces that I'm sawing off will be the bottom part because it's really damaged and we need the sword to look good. The next piece that I will mark is the top part. I am also eyeballing the length of the grip, so now I'm just making the line all around so I know that I'm sawing it straight off camera. So here's what the wood looks like after I sawed it. And now that that's done, time to sand it and make it look smooth. Make sure to put Mod Podge right after. So now let's fix up the blade. I'm going to put more paper mache on it. I'll create more layers to give it more strength so it can stand up on its own. About 2 to 3 layers on it. Now this is paper mache, so you must be patient for it to dry, especially in the cold months. I'm recording this in November, so you can imagine how long it took. For those of you who can't, it took about 5 days, which is pretty darn long when you're trying to finish this video. Now let's go back to the guard of the sword, shall we? I grabbed my box cutter and started cutting away at the styrofoam, slowly carving away and shaping it to the design I wanted. Now styrofoam is quite easy to work with. It's quite cheap, easy to find. Unfortunately, it's quite messy, so have a vacuum cleaner on standby. I now have two pieces that I will create the outside parts of the guard. I am now sanding them and making them look smooth. Now let's go back to the grip of the sword. With the ruler I'm marking every 1 inch. These markings are telling me where to cut to make indents on the wood. These indents can be seen on the actual master sword, so I will be trying to stay as close as possible to the actual sword. So this is what it looks like with the indents I made. I made it with a handsaw, so it took me a while to create the indents, but they came out just like I wanted them. So now I'm just going to sand them, but since I can't get into the small little crevices, I'm using a card in between the sandpaper to smooth out the insides. All nice and smooth. Now make sure to put Mod Podge right after. Now time to make the centerpiece of the guard. I'm using the leftover styrofoam to create it. I am now drawing circles so I know where exactly to carve it. Again, I'm eyeballing the distance between the first circle and the second circle. Once I have the circle drawn out, it's time to cut. Cutter, I'm going to shape the styrofoam to the shape I want. Again, this is going to get messy, so have vacuum on standby. Once I have the shape I wanted, I began to use sandpaper to smooth it out. Unfortunately, this styrofoam was weird shaped, so I had to add some pieces to make sure it was one solid piece. But once I did, it was back to sanding and making the added pieces seem seamless. Pieces that I made so far. Time to make the blade fit the guard. So I'm just going to mark the thickness of the blade onto the centerpiece of the guard, so I know exactly what I need to carve to make the blade fit. Now that it's marked, time to cut. Once done, I had to sand the new gap and make sure that it fits. And it does. We want to make sure that it fits nice and snug to make it look like one piece. The that I created still wasn't stable even after the paper mache. So I decided to create an outer shell using the cardboard. I traced the blade twice to create the outer shell for it. And now I'm creating the edge on the sword. I'm making the lines 2 inches apart since I will be folding it and it will be 1 inch in the end instead of 2. Now let's go back to the corner, the centerpiece of the guard. So seeing I was going to have problems getting the guard onto the sword without breaking it first, I decided to cut the guard in half so it will be easier to get on the sword. Now, you may have noticed the screw on the grip. The screw is holding the blade and the grip together. I will be covering that connection with the centerpiece guard. I will obviously be gluing it with hot glue gun. Now, be careful with this though. It is very hot and you can burn yourself quite easily. I should know, I burn myself almost every project. So now that the centerpiece is in place, time to put the outer pieces on. I'm using the toothpicks to make holes and to hold the outer pieces in place. I will then use the hot glue gun to make sure they don't move from that place. Time to make the jewel that lays in between the blade and the guard. I'm using scraps of foam sheets to create the jewel using hot glue to put it all together. Then I'll glue it into place for both sides. Now for the last part, the painting. I used cobalt blue for the grip and the guard, then used dark blue to make the lines on the outer guard pieces. For the edge of the blade, I used aluminum tape and then painted it dark silver. With the blade itself, I aligned it with thick white paper and then painted it light silver and then did shading to it. But once it was done, this is how the sword looks like. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys like this video, give it a like. Or if you know someone that would like this sort of video, why not share it? Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!